Utah, give me 2.
We're early. Look, it still says 4:59 p.m. on my computer screen right here. It's the Palazzo Podcast, Prospects Power Half Hour with myself and Benjamin Chase. No Phil Goyette today. Phil is a busy man right now. Family stuff, obligations, children, life, business, etc. It all happens, and they take precedent at times. But you're in good hands because it's me and Benjamin taking you home today. Follow Ben on Twitter at BigGentleBen. Of course, I'm at MJ Govier. And the Palazzo Podcast handle,
Utah.
2 L's.
Give me 2.
2 Z's, Palazzo Podcast. Ben, what's cooking today, my good man?
Oh, man. Well, nothing. That's the problem. We're a week away from being done with the trade deadline, and nothing has happened. This is nuts. It's really kind of unprecedented. Normally we've seen, if you think about this last year, everyone wants to talk, I'm wearing my We Are Those MFers shirt from the Braves last year. And the guy who came up with that phrase, Jock Peterson, had been on the team for a month at this point already.
Already?
Ronald Acuna had been out for a month. He went down in late June last year, and they went out and acquired Jock Peterson right away. You're talking about they went out and they started getting other trades done close to the deadline, but not all of those deals were done on deadline day. This is nuts to be this close to the deadline, and there's been nothing.
Damn! That's true.
It's leading to we're gonna have a really dead deadline, or we're gonna have an insane weekend and Monday, Tuesday.
We are in a situation where maybe the additional playoff spots has made it more challenging. A lot more people think that maybe they can hang around. Is that possible? Or
I wonder if it's kind of a combination of that there's more teams who believe that they're involved, and that also puts more teams who feel that they're legitimately in it, so they're making offers to the actual sellers. So if I'm the Oakland A's and I'm putting Frankie Montas onto the market,
yep,
then I may be getting offers from the Red Sox, who really, in a normal year, the Red Sox are probably selling off some pieces. Let's be honest. But
yes,
this year,
especially with such a bad July, yeah, yep.
They're in it, and they're still legit in it for that last playoff spot. There's a lot of teams like that. You start just paring down things. There's a lot of teams that still have a reasonable shot that you kind of have. You're probably fielding a lot of offers for your big name guys, and that's why when we get into our discussion here, 5 guys that are 5 prospects that should have some impact as far as after the deadline, it's really hard for me as far as the big name guys to say for sure, that guy's going to definitely move. We've all heard about Juan Soto. To me, that's an off-season move because you're going to get more out of that. But who knows? Maybe somebody is desperate enough because, hey, we saw the Braves sneak in with 88 wins last year and had just enough to get into the playoffs, and they won the whole stinking thing without one of maybe the 5 or 10 best players in the entire game. Without Ronald Acuna on the field, they were able to win the World Series last year. That's, so if there's anything that proves the playoffs are a crapshoot, there you go. And so
yep.
Could getting Juan Soto on your team be the one thing that puts you over the edge to making sure you're in the playoffs and then you're in that crapshoot? Well, then you might be willing to give up the 5 players. And plus, he's then there for 2 more shots at it. That's a big deal.
That's true. Yeah, the Cardinals are getting all the run on that right now. I still don't think it happens. I still think Soto stays home. I just think he's so unique and such a young age still that you just can't pull the trigger on a deal like this yet. You need more time, and you want to get a clear picture. I know the ownership question it's confusing a lot of the rumors and making people think like, oh, they want it this way now. And if they throw in Patrick Corbin, that'll make the new ownership, whoever that ends up being, happy. That's just hearsay, in my opinion. I don't believe it. I've been around. I know how this stuff goes. And Juan Soto is more unique than almost any player we've had this century. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah. I mean, as far as a hitter, yeah. And
as far as a hitter, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I was hearing something the other day. They did a comparison of as far as career numbers up to this age that has ever been traded. There are two.
Miguel Cabrera one, is this that?
Miguel Cabrera and Babe Ruth.
Yep.
And
Babe Ruth.
You know, let's really take a look back and see how that went for those organizations afterwards. How did that the Marlins afterwards? The Marlins made the playoffs now in a shortened 2020 season, but other than that, it's been a rough go of it ever since they traded away Miggy. And how did things go for the Red Sox after they got rid of Babe Ruth? So precedents there might say the Nationals want to reconsider this idea, but I don't know. That's just me.
Well, look, we're going to talk about 5 prospects that will benefit from this trade deadline. It's all our own opinion. That's what it is. This is an opinion show, believe it or not. We do speak in facts. We offer statistical facts at times, but there is room for maneuvering in our own opinions on life, and we hope you enjoy that. The Palazzo Podcast Patreon is available. If you want to hit that up, go to the Palazzo Podcast Twitter handle, which I already told you about, 2 L's, 2 Z's.
Utah.
And then
Give me 2.
the Discord is free, and you can find Ben in there, myself, Christian, who just popped in with the Miggy trade is forever haunting comment. Christian Crespo in himself is an outstanding prospect analyst and someone who is coaching in the Appalachian League right now. He has his own channel, so if you want to hit him up when he has time, you can do that in our Discord. He's in the Appalachian League. There's future studs in the Appalachian League right now, and Christian is coaching the Bluefield Ridge Runners, which is in West Virginia. And then, that's all that. So we're going to talk about that stuff. And, of course, I want you to read. Oh, okay, Chad's got a comment. I got a secret prospect who is going to benefit the most of any prospect except Langeliers from this trade deadline. Ben Leeper, Cubs reliever, has a monster year at AAA last year, and I think the Cubs closer of the future, Ben Leeper.
So that is one area I completely avoided talking about any relievers in this, just because that is one area where I think every year there's some relief movement. There are a ton of teams that need relief help that are in it right now. And I can just see, and frankly, the Cubs have relievers to move. If you start just going down, the A's, yeah, maybe some of their relievers haven't performed all that well, but they have track record. And so these are guys that could have some interest to teams. You know, these teams that aren't doing so well, they have relievers that should definitely interest contending clubs. And so you put that out there, there's going to be lots of spots open in the back of a bullpen. And so suddenly, you know, as far as a fantasy owner, yeah, you're going to definitely want to be paying attention to Chicago. You're going to definitely want to be paying attention to Oakland. You're going to want to be paying attention to these clubs and seeing what they do. Now, I don't know if someone like Baltimore bites the bullet and trades a Lopez. I mean, that's a guy that they made into essentially a closer, and that's kind of been a big deal to them. And they're not terribly far away from making some noise in that division. Yeah, they may be last, but because they're only a few games under 500, you know, and with the Red Sox kind of having a little turmoil as far as signing up the left side of their infield long-term, there could be some stuff going on to where you could start to see the Orioles make a little noise, and especially with the extra playoff spot, you know, this could be a team that's challenging for a playoff spot the next few years. They might not want to get rid of a guy who has shown that he can handle the back of the bullpen. So I don't know.
Okay, that's a good point. That's a great point, actually. And that's why you want to connect with Ben in our Discord, which is free. Find that link at the top of our Twitter handle, Palazzo Podcast. So before we get into some of the prospects, the 5 prospects who could benefit, I did want to mention Ben's work, which I posted in the live chat here. You can read his latest, which is available at videobaseballscout.com. That's a good place to start. Go from there. But I put the link in the live chat. And it's also available in our Share Your Work channel, which is in our Discord and totally free, where everybody throws all kinds of random stuff they've been working on. You never know who's going to throw something new in there. But Ben is usually consistent about doing that work and his other gig, too, as a newspaperman, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And
where I get to offer up my opinion.
Yeah, you get to speak beyond just the sports or the baseball realm specifically, which I do appreciate, because it turns out we're more than just one thing, people. We're all human beings here. Christian says Baltimore is sneaky buyers for controllable assets.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a fun one. Christian knows his stuff. I trust him. He also says, watch them make a play for Pablo Lopez. Ooh.
And I actually had somebody who made a comment that they would not be surprised at all if the Orioles would be a funny contender for Soto. Would jump into the market and toss, and throw.
Stay right there in the beltway. He doesn't have to leave.
Yeah. But I mean, it'd be an off-season thing. They're not going to try and jump into the mid-season contention. But if it got to the off-season, there's a potential there, because I mean, you can't argue that they have the prospects to make things work
Easily.
And
It's 5 guys I can think of right off the top of my head. Yep.
And so, I mean, yeah, that would be an interesting one, which, boy, you want to really jumpstart how quickly they could rebuild that franchise. Plug a Juan Soto in the middle of that lineup, and, then all of a sudden you have a lot of fun. Hey,
damn right. He's here. Anthony finally arrived. We always wait for Anthony before we officially start the show. Unofficially, that is. Joe says, I'm going to start posting random a sequel in Java code in the Discord. Show Your Work channel. Please do, Joe. We would love to just read programming code for hours on end. That could be wonderful. Before we get to the 5 guys and the prospects you should know about the deadline, I wanted to mention what Ben originally enlightened me about, and that was Jacob Turner, former Tigers draft pick, the 9th overall pick in the 2009 draft. He posted a thread about his draft experience, and it was fantastic. I strongly recommend that you go and follow Jacob at The Sudden Wealth. Sudden Sudden Wealth. The Sudden Wealth. So he's an entrepreneur now. Yeah, trying to help athletes and such. There was also a tweet thread by Mark Capelle, former number 1 overall pick, who is now back and made his triumphant return recently. So this seemed like a coordinated attempt, in my view, by a lot of these former draft picks who feel like the MLB draft is just it's a messed up system, or there's a lot of traps that you have to avoid. And he talks about how your value can be wildly, wildly all over the place, even to you, not knowing that you're going to be drafted so highly or low, and much more than the NFL or maybe the NBA. And this is all having to do, in my opinion, with recent talks stalling and falling out. The international player draft did not get agreed to by the MLBPA and MLB. So, Ben, I just want to get your comments on all of that. If you're not aware of this international draft that did not come to fruition, please go read about it, check up on it, because there's a lot going on here. And this is huge, huge money. Young people, very important ethical principles are involved in all of this.
And I really like, reading through Turner's thread really struck a chord with me. I appreciate Mark Capelle's comments. He also was coming from a Stanford education. The man had a little different point of view.
He did.
Turner was coming off of, being a guy who, let's face it, he's 18, he's coming into $5 million. That's a whole different world of money. And what they're talking about here is what he's trying to make a comparison to here is what they're wanting to do with the international system, and how everyone's saying, well, this would be so much better for these international players to put them all into a draft. and then we could put them all in this draft, and then we'd be able to organize their money better. And see, this is going to be so much better for these kids because they're going to be picked and they'll get their bonus. And then, it's going to be so much better rather than the system that we currently have. And pretty much all these former kids who went through a domestic system are going, and how is that going to be any better? Because instead of someone going and stalking a Dominican kid's mom since the time he's like 12, which is really freaking creepy, instead of that happening, now you've got that same scout basically he's doing the same thing, but he's stalking him saying, so what is he willing to sign for? Because we've got the 14th overall pick, and well, we're willing to move a little cash around and try to get him at the 14th pick if we can sign him at this bonus slot. Rather than, hey, we've got this amount of international bonus pool and we're willing to offer him $4 million. They've got a 14th overall pick and doing the same exact thing. What is the difference? And that is the whole point that Turner's trying to make here. And I think that point was well taken, that, guys, a draft doesn't change the system. What is going on in Latin America right now is a broken system. Everyone talks about what happened with the Braves and John Capelle, but he was just dumb enough to leave a paper trail. Everyone is doing the same crap that he got in trouble for. He was just dumb enough to leave a paper trail and got his butt kicked out of the game for it. So, I mean, you're talking about a guy, they put together these proposals, and this was a sticking point when they negotiated the new CBA that delayed the season this year.
Yep.
And they gave themselves until the deadline was this last Monday to negotiate this international thing. And the pools ended up becoming the exact number, $69 million apart. The pool that the MLBPA submitted was $69 million more than the final offer that Major League Baseball was willing to submit to. Now, I mentioned this before the show, is trying to put together a couple of players, because no one player makes $69 million.
Right.
But you try to put together two players for that amount of money. And I just thought, because it'd be fun, because they were former teammates and, at one point, Max Scherzer and Bryce Harper together actually make a hair less than $69 million.
Okay. There it is.
And if you want to get another pairing from, if you want to get an elite pair of young shortstops, Francisco Lindor and Carlos Correa together make a hair more than $69 million. That's a crazy amount of money that is splitting these two sides.
Yeah.
Those are elite player salary differences between these two sides as far as a bonus pool. And if we want to get really into that, $69 million in bonus money is essentially a whole first round of the draft bonus pool money. That's a lot of freaking bonus pool to talk about.
Yeah, it is.
And that's a huge amount of money difference. And it's for a 20-round draft. That's what they wanted to say. If you're going to be doing this with 16-year-old kids, that's the big thing. They aren't changing the 16-year-old part. We're still going after 16-year-old kids.
Yep.
And how MLB is putting out this is, hey, the Players Association, they didn't want Latin kids to be able to get this education that we were guaranteeing them. They didn't want to have this guaranteed roster that we were offering as part of the draft and all this stuff. No, let's be real and upfront here, there are a crap ton of international kids that are basically given 20 grand, and then they come over stateside and they play for 10 years in the minor leagues because, frankly, it's better than what they would be making at home, and they're sending that back home. And these kids fill up minor league rosters for teams.
Yep.
And it's crap. It's really crap. And they know it. I mean, the major league teams know that they can go to Latin countries and get this because it's cheap labor. And so they do. And that's just simply not okay.
Yep.
But they now they have this same system all set up. And so it's going to continue to be the same system. We're going to run out the same, we're going to have the qualifying offer again, as we always have.
Yep.
That stuff's all going to still be in line, just the way it always has been. Sadly.
Oh, boy. That's really, really good. Well said, Ben. Well said. Look, the Jacob Turner thread we just scrolled through. For those of you here in the podcast version, we had it while he was talking. And, man, you think about what it's like to be a human being who gets a lot of money, but is still expected to perform, and then things don't go according to plan, and you have emotions and responses to that, but you're also seen as a business entity in a way, a part of a business. You're just another cog in the machine. I know I cannot do this. I cannot put myself in the shoes of what it's like to be an athlete, especially minor league athletes who try to make it to the bigs, because you have to live it to really understand it. We can't put our regular lives, quote unquote, our typical, my typical job working as an account manager for some business is much, much different than what Jacob Turner did as a starting pitcher trying to be a big leaguer and so on. So just remember that. I think it's important to keep that in context. All right. There it is. Enough of the soapbox. Let's talk about a few players here in the deadline. I still think we're going to see some deals here, but I don't think we're going to see this big party on deadline day either. A lot of people say it's all going to just kind of build up to a surge and explode on deadline day. I'd be wary of that. There's been a lot of post and excitement about it, but the hype doesn't always meet that. So, Ben, why don't we talk about a prospect do you think will benefit from this trade deadline more likely than not?
So, first one I'm going to mention is a guy. We don't know which one is going to move, but we have a pretty good idea. The Reds are shopping pitchers pretty hard. We don't know which one's going to go. I like the possibility of seeing Brandon Williamson in the majors this year.
Oh, there he is.
He's a guy, he was originally drafted by the Mariners in the second round out of Texas Christian. Big 6'6" lefty. And they got him in the Winker deal last year.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And started out in Double-A this year. And, I mean, let's be honest, his numbers haven't blown anyone away this year, mainly because he's really still struggling to control the ball. But his raw stuff from the left side is just about as good as you can find in the minor leagues. And we've talked a little bit before about that whole anyone over 6'5" issue. He has some of that. Every now and then he gets a little bit off in his delivery. I could just see him doing very, very well with a short run in the majors and using that to, because the major leagues haven't seen him yet, and using that as kind of a propeller going forward into 23 in AAA, and then working his way back. And boy, a future Reds rotation that has Hunter Green and Nick Lodolo and Brandon Williamson would be kind of fun to start building off of.
It would be.
Whether they have Luis Castillo or Trevor Molly still around, don't know. Maybe they get rid of both of them this trade deadline, but it sounds pretty sure that they're getting rid of one of them.
All right. Okay. Well, they definitely will get rid of one of them. Yeah, it's a certainty. Lock it in.
The other guy that almost is certainly going to be moving is Wilson Contreras.
Yes.
And with everything we saw, it kind of kind of seems like he's a goner with everything we saw at Wrigley this last week.
Yeah, we had a comment from Chad here saying, assuming Wilson is off the board. So it's already implying that, and we'll talk about that trade in a minute. But yeah, go ahead.
But a couple years back, the Cubs system was such that Miguel Amaya was their number one prospect. And catcher who came out of Panama, very talented receiver, and he's coming back from a pretty significant injury, and he's just getting back onto the field. He's had his first, I think, handful of games at Double-A again. And so I don't know that he's going to be a guy that you'll see immediately in August after these trades get done. But watch for him as you get towards mid-August into September, because he has been hitting well throughout his rehab, and I think he had 5 hits in his first 2 games in Double-A once he got promoted back up into full season ball. So, I mean, this is a kid who his bat is just electric, and defensively, he's a stud when he's healthy. Now, I think, I guess I haven't seen in the last couple of days, but his first couple of games down in Double-A, he was a DH. And I don't know if he played any catcher in rehab. I know he was catching bullpens. I don't remember if he did any catching. They were trying to be very limited in his catching just to kind of ease him back. So, but that's a guy to watch, and I know that he is definitely their future at that position. So he could certainly be up for that September stretch run for the Cubs and could help some fantasy owners.
All right, Miguel Amaya of the Cubs, the heir apparent. Christian says he saw Amaya live in Low A back in 2019. Standout player even then. That's very impressive. Anthony says MJ Govier is my cousin. I didn't know that we were cousins. Wow. So this is news to me. Breaking news live on the show here. Chad said, I just assume that the Mets are going to finalize a deal for Wilson Contreras because they have an established rapport with the front office from the Javi Baez deal last year.
Which could be.
I mean, I can't argue against it, but yes, there are. It did seem like once upon a time the Tigers were doing deals with like the same teams. I'm talking over 20+ year periods, like the Astros. When Randy Smith was the GM, the terrible Randy Smith era of the Tigers in the late 90s, early 2000s, before Dave Dombrowski saved the franchise. It seemed like every deal was with the Padres back then. So yeah, there are teams that have established rapport, and there's no doubt about that. But what about
Dayton Moore and the Braves?
Oh yeah, exactly. See,
Royals and the Braves. I think they make a trade every deadline. Well, they've already made one. They made one for a draft pick. So,
Chad says, I don't think they will roll with P.J. Higgins as a backup.
You never know. It might just. Yeah. I mean, they actually do have some. They have some good quad A type of guys down in AAA. So until he's 100%, that might be what they do. Is they use one of those. They have a lot of guys that they could, or a few guys down in AAA that they could probably bring up for August and then throw through the waiver wire once Amaya is ready, because they're the type of guys that you can find in AAA everywhere as far as catching goes.
Speaking of teams that made trades with each other, the Rays already acquired one Oakland catcher. Christian Betancourt went there recently. Yep. Chad says maybe Sean Murphy will go to the Rays if Wilson Contreras goes elsewhere. I think that's a possibility. It's pretty high probability that Oakland will be one of the more active movers because we know they're not in it, and we know they want to dump more salary. That's one of the most probably strongest certainties of this deadline, right?
And they actually have 2 guys that I have mentioned as far as prospects, and
great.
One of those actually would be in the case that Murphy moves. I really think that Shane Langelier is going to get his shot, and he's been in competition all year in the Oakland system for the home run lead. He's got 18 this year. He's a guy, he's probably not going to ever hit you 300, but he's a 260, 280 hitter and going to hit for good power. Just a good overall approach, but he's just fun to watch on defense. The guy just, I mean, the joke was last year in Mississippi, you don't run on Shea Langeliers. It's just not a good idea. And so it was just kind of fun to watch him mow down runners. And I think he
JT Real Muto used to be.
Yeah, there you go. I think Langeliers actually, I believe, had a caught stealing in the Futures game.
Oh, okay, nice.
So, I mean, but he is a very talented catcher on both sides of the ball, and I think that'll come through. He'll end up probably getting a shot. Oakland is a type that they tend to also have a whole lot of guys that are around as far as AAA, those kind of quad A catchers.
Yeah.
So whether they'll immediately throw him into the fire as the starter, that's, to be seen. But I think that it would make a lot of sense. And especially, where they are as far as that they're going to be out of it, might as well just give him run. So he would be probably, as far as all these guys we're talking about, he's probably the guy who could have the most playing time the rest of this year out of all these guys that we talk about.
Who's the other athletic?
The other athletic, and this is probably kind of a guy, Chad Pinder to me is a guy that the A's are very likely to move just because there's going to be a lot of interest in a utility guy that can do what Chad Pinder does. And I think Max Schumann is a guy that just steps right into his role. He's probably not a guy, I'm not sure even how highly rated he is on their top 30s. 20th round guy out of Eastern Michigan.
Hey, Ypsilanti. All right.
In 2018. But the guy he gets on base at an absurd level. 433 on base this year between AA and AAA. Last year, he took advantage of some of the new minor league rules and stole 52 bases. I don't know that he's quite that kind of a base stealer, but he's definitely a 20 base stealer, has a little bit of pop, definitely can hit the gaps, but absolutely can get on base. And he's just kind of a perfect fit that he's going to get into Oakland. He can play all around the infield and outfield. Just kind of he's going to play everywhere. He's going to get on base a bunch. Just kind of that good Oakland type of a player, really. I mean, and I could just see him getting some run after the deadline with Oakland.
I'm just going to tell you, and this to me is a tribute to Ben, the Fangraphs top 43 prospects for Oakland, and he's not on there. So. I can't wait till he comes up and starts playing and shows what he can do, and then people at Fangraphs be like, gosh, well, we didn't even have him in the top 43. So, just saying. I'm looking, and I'm not seeing. All right, well, we're over. Finish it off real quick. Finish off who else you did, because I want to get on the record.
And he's actually another Red. And he's a guy who's been up a few different times, Jose Barrero. And from Cuba. And he's been up a few different times. But one of the things he did the last time he was up was he played center field. And with the Reds this year, Kyle Farmer has played a passable defense at short. And so he's kind of taken away Jose's spot at shortstop. But they have a number of outfielders that are going to be attractive as in kind of a backup platoon role for teams. Guys like Tommy Pham and guys like that, they're going to be attractive on the trade market. And, he really did not hit well. And he's he's kind of had a meh year, Barrero has.
Yep.
But he is absolutely part of the future that they see for that organization. And I could definitely see them giving him some more run this year if they've traded off some of those guys. And he's just not, like I said, he's not done anything great this year in the minors to tell me that he's going to have a big year to end the year. But he's a kind of a guy that's got the talent. They seem to have some desire to have him be part of their future. So it wouldn't be surprising to me if he comes up, he gets some run in center field.
Okay.
That's the last guy I was highlighting.
There it is. We got all 5 of Ben's guys. That makes me happy. Chad says real quickly, going back to the Pinder comment and the possibility of Schumann coming up, I'm curious if they give Brett Harris a shot if they move Pinder or if it's too early.
they kind of have a host of guys that are like that. My main focus was on Schoenman just because he is in AAA, so he's closer. Harris is in AA, which, so he's kind of that same type of guy. Plays all over the place, gets on base a ton. So, I mean, very similar type of a player. But has worked his way up to AA. I'm trying to think. Yes, he has. I had to look him up. He has been there for half the year already. I didn't think he'd been there that long already. But so it's very feasible that, Schoenman could go up to AAA. Harris bumps up, takes his spot, or goes up from AAA, and Harris takes his spot at AAA. And you might see Harris in September. So that could be very feasible that Harris ends up getting into the majors because of that promotion of Schoenman. So there's always, kind of the different layers that could end up in play. So.
Yes, sir. Don't forget, next week we're going to have on a special guest from adoptaminorleaguer.com. It's happening next week on this very show, right, Ben?
Yes. And I need to get him into I've confirmed that. I just need to get him into a nice group chat with all of us as far as hosts. And it's a great organization. They do a lot of very good work for folks. And especially now as we're coming out of the draft and we're talking about these guys that are signing their first big deal. And then what the reality is going to be that, like Jacob Turner talked about, you're treated like a king for 3 days. And then what? And, this organization does a great job of that. And then what? So
that's huge. And we're really looking forward to that. It's going to be awesome. I hope you guys bring everybody out for that one. We want to provide as much attention as possible for that episode next week. Even if you can't catch it live, don't forget that every episode we do is in perpetuity on our YouTube channel. I assume it's on the Twitch channel. I'm really bad at checking on our Twitch. No offense to you Twitchers. I just don't. We're on there. It's there because that's how we met Chad, and our lives have never been the same since that day. So that's a good thing for us. And of course, the podcast version, it's available everywhere. Hey, if you've not given us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, could you please consider doing that? We need to bump up the ratings on this show, and it's been a minute since we've had some reviews. So if you haven't done it, you can only do it once on each platform, of course. Please do so. Next week, we'll talk about Adopt a Minor Leaguer. And, maybe we'll squeeze in a couple quick thoughts about, the deadline will have been the day before. I'm sure we'll even get his thoughts, too. Our oncoming guest, see what he has to say about it all. I'm sure he's a baseball fan, too, right?
It'll probably impact some minor leaguers. As far
right,
as
exactly.
Move and things like that. So, I mean, there's probably some things that he'll be able to tell us about that. So
that's even, see, that's Ben's always working ahead. He's always one step ahead, guys. So we hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you so much. Palazzo Podcast at protonmail.com. If you want to send us an email, I never check it, but it does exist. Palazzo Podcast on Twitter.
You talk.
2 L's, 2
Give me 2
T's. Big Gentle Ben. Follow Big Gentle Ben on Twitter. It's a must follow. You could read his work. I posted it in a link. You can find more of his work in our Discord, which is free. Phil Goyette, we're thinking about you. Hope you're having a wonderful time, whatever you're doing right now. Thanks, everybody. We'll catch you next time on the Palazzo Podcast Prospects Power Half Hour.